Boop ba woo. Doot 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 doot. We can shake out. It can be okay. Beep boop.
And with that, we are back to actual play. Welcome, everybody.
Here we are.
Here we are. Yes, we are about
So now is the time to choose character playbooks for everyone.
Awesome. I want to play the stranger.
Okay, great.
Boom.
Whoa. That's fast.
Your options are
oh, we're gonna start there. My bad.
minus the stranger.
No,
are you gonna pull them up in Roll20? Are you gonna demo them, display them?
I am not able to display the PDF in its entirety in Roll20. If you are able to do that from the production side, that would be cool. But I can just read through the list at least. So there is the unlikely hero, who is who like doesn't have transcendent powers right away, and has to like come into them during the course of play, and is all about like having a different level of engagement with the kind of collective responsibility of the crew. There's the Enigma, who is the edgiest playbook and is all about being mysterious and having a split between their like superhero persona and their mundane self. So you're basically Tuxedo Mask. A classic unlikely hero trope would be like Steven Universe from Steven Universe. And the Enigma has a lot of moves around like being sneaky and setting other people up, stuff like that. There is the Harmony, which is a character who is two people who merge together when they transcend, and can turn into a giant woman or whatever else. It's totally inspired by characters from Steven Universe. There is the Guardian, who is like probably the most kind of straight up character. They're all about protecting others, helping them heal, looking out for danger. This is kind of like a classic like core protagonist character. There's the Outsider. The Outsider has a rival, and you have a bunch of moves that hinge around doing stuff to do with your rival. And they are very like direct and brash and I don't know, all about having a rival that which can be totally one-sided or two-way rivalry. It could just be like, I hate them. They're just like, I don't even know who you're talking about. Like, who is that person? I don't know. There's the Stranger, and the Stranger has a like different relationship to emotion than the other characters. And they aren't able to social link, so they can't like hang out and have fun with the other characters. They also can't help them recover. And it's all about an exploration of that stuff. There is the Time Traveler, and the Time Traveler is a nosy meddler who has come back or forward in time in order to prevent a dark fate, which centers around one of the other player characters. And a lot of their moves are about having this kind of like oracular quality where they make spooky predictions about things and have impossible knowledge of what is going to happen or has happened. So those are the playbooks. We've got Andy choosing the Stranger.
Yeah,
these playbooks are by no means mutually exclusive. If everyone wants to play the Stranger, that's fine. We can make that work. Our game's kind of thematic scope narrows when we make those kinds of choices, but it's fine. We can do that if we want.
I'm gonna bet that we're not all three gonna play the Stranger. I'm not sure. Well, I'm not gonna play a Stranger, so there we go. We'll not all three be doing that.
You broke the streak.
Yeah.
Alas.
I am very interested. Sorry, go on, Andy.
Oh, I was gonna say, despite my immediate and unhesitating proclamation, if either of you feel strongly, I will happily make space.
I feel. The moment I saw it, I was like, I don't know why, but I want to play a time traveler, and that playbook really spoke to me. The Guardian also does, although I think the Guardian is a more conventional approach to how I envision a troubled captain, and perhaps a deviating from that convention and also following what seems exciting, which is the time traveler, is the better route. So I feel like I like Guardian a lot, and I feel like I'm just slightly leaning towards time traveler over it though, because
I feel like with
So cool.
giant engines that have existed for some immense period of time, we could actually have weird, cool time travel-y bits.
Yeah, a like from the past time
Yeah, I
traveler
was
seems
thinking of a from the
particularly-
past, from the time when the gods
Fun.
used to be awake. Like,
and yeah, this could be like you, if we want to make the old technology be kind of like magic, then it could be that you like magicked yourself forward in time. It could be that you were in stasis and they found you here and you're like a person who is from another time and they like put you
In
like,
an engine, perhaps?
right, yeah, like you were
Yeah.
in one of these things and like sealed the portal into their world or whatever, and then everything stopped.
I want to say I came with them, like as part of the Leviathans coming. I was part of the blast radius, like as the explosion happened.
Yeah, you like came through that rip in reality that they emerged from.
Yeah. Also, it gives that like. I'm not at all excited about playing the "what is this strange television that you speak of" sort of trope.
No, certainly
That is painful to me, but because it's so campy. I mean, sometimes a little.
Also, here's something I'll put forward, which is a really handy framing that I have used in the past that I really enjoy, which is that we think of this as being season 2 of the TV show of this story. So there's a season 1 where we got through all that crap where you like emerge from your thing and you're like, what is a television? Like we're done with that. That's all over. And like we also have a space behind us that we can refer to and be like, oh yeah, like back in season 1, like I was one of the baddies and I've now like joined our side or whatever, right? Like there's room to allude to some story that has come before. This isn't the start of the thing. We're kind of partway through.
I like that a lot, Andrew.
Helpful as a way of framing.
That's really smart.
I found that in the past it has been really nice and helpful. So yeah, so that can be an option. So you can be that type of character and we don't have to go through that process of dealing with boring stuff we don't want to, basically. We can say, oh yeah, in season 1 I went through that and now I know what a TV is and it's fine.
Right. And when it comes up, it could be the weird thing, the funny thing, rather than the constant.
Yeah, like you just have this one thing that you can't get over, this one piece of technology that just never quite makes sense to you, but it's just the one, and it's not a constant stupid thing. Yeah.
Toothbrush.
So, all of that being said, anyone have any choices? So, it sounds like Sean, time traveler is where you're going to want to.
I feel like time traveler. Strash, do you have a?
So like the natural fit for the like rowdy ace pilot is kind of the outsider, but I don't know. I'm kind of feeling the guardian.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's really great. I like that a lot.
Your insubordination could be about protecting people instead of doing the mission, right?
Yes,
stuff like that to say, right? Because
actually, a lot of that.
If we're thinking about insubordinates in the sense of like the society's things of valuing strength and sacrifice, there's totally room for the Guardian's agenda to be directly counter to all that stuff. Sorry to talk over you.
That's totally what I'm picking, and that's why, yeah, let's do
that. Cool, great. Okay, so everyone's made a choice. That's easy. And so now we can bounce back to carrying on with our thing. All I will say more about this is that on the character sheets provided for you in Roll20, there is a space to write down your role and your background. So your role is going to literally be what was on the crew sheet there, and then your background can just be a little bit extra on that. Just you like filling out that description a little bit as it comes to you. You don't need to worry about having that right away. But it's like the 5th thing down on the left. So you can punch it in there and save it for later. We'll kind of swing back to character playbooks after we have finished going through the last of these options. And then we'll like pick abilities and all that stuff.
Awesome.
Deal with all of our little mechanical bits. Which brings us back to how they keep us in line. Strash, would you like to read how they keep us in line?
Sure. So, some of the ways they might keep us in line. Impossible quotas, spies and informants, propaganda and lies, drugs and addictions, gilded cages, threats and fear. And of course, there is the question of why can't we just leave?
So yeah, we'll pick the prompt we want first, and then we can answer that question for ourselves.
Nice.
So quotas, I imagine, is like, yeah, you got to go out and you got to fight like 5 Leviathans every month. Otherwise, it's going to be trouble for you. And so you're just like busy all the time trying to like prepare for the next sortie to go and like do the thing.
And since the Leviathans come faster and are more dangerous,
or every month you hit your quota, they raise it by 1.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah, whichever way you want to spin it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Threats and fears feels like it very much fits into what we have talked about, which is this idea that if we don't do this, then society is doomed, and
yeah, that like authoritarianism comes through in that.
There's a lot of critique, almost in a similar way, almost to the quotas of just like whatever you did, it wasn't enough, because even if you make one mistake, they could destroy the fortress and end us and all that.
And yeah, this stuff of how they keep us aligned in our reputation, this is specific to you all, to pilots.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We don't need to limit the total, like you 3 aren't the only pilots. You're just the 3 that like matter to the story, because it might be that your character dies and we need to have another pilot, and that can come from this like amorphous roster of other people.
Right.
And so,
but it does mean that they're another way of looking at impossible quotas is they might also pit us against each other.
Yeah, like your team has to compete with the other teams.
Right. And they try to, which is a great way to keep people down, right? Just to keep pointing them fighting amongst each other. So
you don't have any time to fight your boss when you're fighting your coworker.
Yeah.
I have a counter pitch.
Yep.
Is anyone shocked? I'm kind of really into drugs and addictions. And I'm wondering if medication for Leviathan sickness can count as a drug.
Absolutely.
And if piloting engines can be an addiction.
Why wouldn't it be? It's like the only time you get to leave the fucking city state, right? You get to go outside, albeit in a giant like robot thing, but
sure. So Josh, is your idea that piloting is unhealthy, and that we sort of need these drugs that they give us to survive? Or
we already established that all of us have been exposed to basically Leviathan sickness. It's just that our bodies have learned how to adapt to it. But much like some people have a higher tolerance for radiation, it doesn't mean that you necessarily are just like immune.
Mm-hmm. So when we go out and fight the Leviathans, we're experiencing more of this of their effects, and we have to, and so we need the drugs to combat that.
Yeah, and they'll cut us off if we don't do the things they want us to do.
But I think my concern with that is that if the exposure to the Leviathans is what's killing us, which makes total sense, and the drugs are what keeps us from deteriorating further, which makes total sense, what would stop us from just not piloting? Because then we wouldn't be more exposed to violence. We'd be staying inside the ancient fortress. You see what I'm saying? Or am I overthinking?
No, it's totally fine. But like the way that I'm seeing it is essentially like Leviathan sickness has given us like this partial change that also allows us to interact with the engines, but it may not be a stable state. We may
like there's a lot of stuff that needs to go on to keep your body from doing all kinds of weird
keep
stuff.
You regulated, right?
Yeah, and also
in these narrow parameters.
Don't forget that there's the addiction portion to this prompt, right? It's not just the drugs; it's also the addiction that is how they keep you in line. So it's the fact that you're, like maybe like Strasser suggested, being addicted to piloting the engines, and that there's something about that like, it's a totally unique experience, and that the characters might desire it and want to repeat it, even though it's dangerous.
I'm seeing Andy making faces, but it's just a pitch. I'm not like wedded to it.
Well, the good news is you and I were about to speak about the same time, and the thing that I was about to say was, hey, there's only one of these that I really dislike and I would really like to cross off. Guess which one?
Is it drugs and addictions, Andy?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
It's totally fine.
Let's not play that one then.
So, so I like the framing, and I also like, no, thank you.
Yep.
Cool.
That's real.
Yeah.
Great.
Let me provide some more context for why we're talking about this particular subject. So the combination of this category and the next category, our reputation, are going to be what color the obligation phase. Because in other playbooks, you get to like pick different obligations, but in this one, we already know what your obligation is. It's that you're pilots, right? This is the place where you suffer the oppressions of your society and the institutions. Is that you have to keep going out and fight. And so, to substitute, instead of us being like, are we high school students? Do we work a day job? Whatever. This is like, no, yeah, we're pilots. But I wanted to have something to dig deeper. So we talk about, how they regulate and control you within that role. And then also how you're viewed by the populace at large. And so those things, every like episode, every arc, we're going to talk about how is this messing up your life, this week? Like how is the propaganda and lies or the impossible quotas, how is that causing you stress? And every episode starts with us accumulating a bunch of stress by way of our obligation. So these are the things that are getting you down about being a pilot. In addition to the, just general, you're institutionalized, you're in like a military organization, and that's horrifying in its own right.
Yeah. We have
so
extra special.
How these matter.
Do any of you, so I feel like threats and fear are a very direct line to the idea of strength being something that the society values. And I wonder if there's any interest in that, or in spies and informants as a sort of inversion, like reviled version method of control.
So threats and fears is also what I was thinking. That's also sort of the notion that they can literally put us in the position of saying that any mistake we make is potentially the downfall, and just constantly berate us with those things. Spies and informants strikes me, the way I envision it is one of those things where you have to just be uber careful about everything you do, because it will be someone is watching and it will be misinterpreted, it will be construed in the wrong way, it will be used against you.
Yeah, you're being constantly scrutinized.
There's this very which I is attractive to me, because of course our characters are going to break the social taboos.
Yeah, you're inherently transgressive against everything your society values.
Right. So because we're going to do that, it seems very easy for them to find reasons to like correct your behavior. So it's not just that they're always watching you. The thing that's interesting is them correcting you. Yeah.
Like bringing you back in line by way of that.
So we get to break society's taboos, but we don't get to do it with impunity, and we don't get to do it perpetually. We keep getting dropped back down, and then we break them again, and we drop back down.
Speak for yourself, Captain.
Oh golly.
I love the notion of like, you're going to get us all killed, but you're also the one that's watching out for us. There's some real, right? Like you're watching out for us in the moment, or however the guardian ability manifests, but by virtue of who we are, putting us in danger, right? Like just the way we act, it puts us in danger.
I like threats and fear personally.
Cool.
Real straightforward.
Yeah.
Sometimes the clear choice is totally the right one, and I think it can work.
I'm down for that. Y'all feel good about that as like the things, what do our daily lives look like in a terrible fashion this time through? Like those are the challenges you're excited to meet.
Yep. And then so then we have to answer the question of why can't we just leave? To loop back to some stuff we were talking about earlier, there was the idea of like us needing support from the institutions because of our exposure to Leviathan radiation, as they call it, whatever that means. I think that could fit in here as a nice way of being like, yeah, we're kind of dependent on like medical support or whatever else because of our
sickness
problem state as pilots, right?
Yeah.
That could fit here in a way that is maybe less shitty in terms of Andy, you wanting to cross that off.
Yeah,
is that true, or
that is true.
Push it away.
No, that is true. That is accurate. So I think that is of interest. Another reason is like there's nowhere to go.
Well,
I was going to say
we're an isolated city state, right? Yeah,
well, also society may react poorly to us because we are sick. Like the fact that we are in some ways both outsiders and like these pilots, even if we were to quit and leave the institution that we're in, like normal people would see us and be like, "Oh, stay away from them. They're irradiated. You could get sick too," and stuff
Right.
like that.
Oh my goodness.
There's like a social stigma as
Yeah.
well that keeps us from leaving.
I just read the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, which is amazing, by the way. Everybody should read this season. And the people in it, the people that have this power to like create earthquakes, are hated and feared. Like they have this crazy power, but they're completely controlled by other people. And so this notion that the thing that makes us whatever our reputation is about to be, we'll pick in a second, is also the thing that makes us feared. That threats and fear go both ways. Like people fear us.
You are
the nature
boogeyman of the society to a certain extent.
Right.
Yeah.
So like to leave would be to invite, like we have this, it's a little bit gilded cages in a sense, because to leave would be to leave this one little small space that we can live in, just like that blast radius of the radiation. We live in this small little space where we can.
Yeah, it's the one like liminal space where we are permitted to exist.
Yeah.
Because
Cool,
after all, most of us bear like marks of leviathans on our very flesh. So
yeah. So that's a good segue into the reputation part, Sean, if you want to read it.
Sure. Our reputation: celebrated heroes, figureheads for the authority, cursed warriors, cultural icons, hopeless fodder, monsters in our own right. And then once we decide those monsters in our own right, what part of our reputation is deserved and what isn't?
Do we choose one or two?
This is choose one. From our previous conversation, it sounds like we're looking at like cursed warriors or monsters in our own right. If we want to just keep following directly, I'm more than happy for this to go.
Yeah, we also could totally be celebrated heroes in the idea that like we're paraded around and people see us like at a distance, and people love us in a like a cultural icon, but
like at a remove.
Exactly. Like we get lifted up and it's like Hunger Games style where we're like featured and we're like on every soda can bottle, but like
figureheads.
But as freaks or as, you know, like
no one would want to ever like shake your hand. They're just like, oh yes, they've saved us all. Isn't that wonderful? But I wouldn't want to, I wouldn't like touch one. Oh no, God no.
So I could see that too, and that we're very, very public.
So, yeah, I like the idea of doing a less direct one here, of having this kind of like other reputation. So something like you're saying, of being like celebrated in some weird, gross way, right? Like,
well, I think the idea is like we're celebrated as objects, right? Like we're seen
not as people,
but as like they serve this purpose. And what do you think?
And if the society values sacrifice, right, then like what greater sacrifice is there in from their perspective of like, oh yeah, they don't even get to like talk to people and they have to live apart, and that's good, but like how noble of them. Oh, how good that they did that.
Yeah.
But everyone would just like totally dehumanize you and treat you like garbage.
Right. And if you actually wanted to talk to them or hang out with them.
Yeah, no, that's not okay.
That would not be cool.
Great. And of course there will be people who break this rule, or who are fascinated with you, and maybe that'll be a good thing. Maybe they'll be your friends, or maybe that'll be a gross thing where they're like fetishizing you. But there's room for all of that stuff. So don't view this as being like, oh, there will be like 3 NPCs I get to interact with for the whole game, and that's it.
Right.
No,
there's sure. I mean, there's always deviations on these.
People always break these rules and stuff, but this is just broad strokes. Who would like to read the options for the flagship?
I think we have to answer the question.
Oh no, we haven't answered questions yet.
Well, hold on, Strash. Is celebrated heroes a match for your like?
Absolutely.
Have we concretely agreed on that as a thing?
Cool. I was about to ask which one I'm underlining, because many of these were touched upon in our explanations. I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, I saw Strash right on the Roll20 celebrated as objects. So I was like, I'm pretty sure that we're good as that.
We're doing celebrated heroes. Yeah, that was the vibe I picked up. And yeah, the reason I rolled on was just because I saw you were like writing out this thing. I was like, okay, well, I guess he's confirmed.
I wasn't necessarily like, I'm piloting the actual writing, but like I'm not trying to decide for us so much as I was hearing a lot of like stoke and nodding, so I was like getting ahead because it's all digital and easy to erase. So
no, yeah, exactly. I figured it was like the last yes vote was you just
right, exactly. And this is my yes vote.
Yeah.
What part of our reputation is deserved? Like, to what degree are we? I mean, I think it's kind of, to me, the obvious choice is like, yeah, we're badasses who who
You are heroes.
we are heroes, right? Like that is not untrue. We go and we fight leviathans and punch them with our engines, and we do risk our lives, and we do potentially sacrifice ourselves, right? Like that's we might not always. We're going to break that, but that's at least that seems like the obvious answer to that. But I'm open to other thoughts on it too, for sure.
So you are deservedly known to be heroes, but then like what isn't true about this whole thing? Like, is it that you aren't what the propaganda says you are? Is it one of those things? Or like there's this message that is given out that the people understand, and then there's kind of the flip side to it that isn't actually.
I like the idea that they tell a story about us that makes us seem like we're totally content and totally happy, and this is exactly what we want to do. This is the whole purpose of our existence. This is why
eager volunteers.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
and
doing their part,
and that's what we're told to say. Like, yes,
yeah,
do whatever we can for the team, right? Like that like that's the persona that they want to present, so it makes people feel good about treating us like objects, right? Is that we're eager to be treated.
You want to be, treated.
Right. We want to be monastic or held apart, or don't want to like in fact interact with others because that's inherently polluting.
I love that. Yeah, like and it's not right for them to like, and they know that it's best that they don't like engage with the populace and stuff. Like they try to tell this story that you want to be isolated from the world.
Yeah.
That's good. So it just makes it even more wrong for people to break that rule, and they're going to do it all. So yes. Great. Strash, I think everything you've written down so far is totally accurate with what we discussed, and then just adding a second line that's like talking about that isolation stuff, if that jives with you, because it seems like Sean and Andy.
I'm 100% on board. I'm already doing it.
Cool, great.
Nice.
Excellent. All right. In that case, sorry, we can move on. I got jumpy because I'm jumpy. Andy, would you like to read out the flagship?
Oh, golly. All right. The flagship. The last Leviathan hunter. A floating fortress. A top-of-the-line ship. A former civilian vessel. A swarm of smaller ships. A sleek corvette. What is its name? What is its history?
And so y'all will get a flagship, and you can like it gets like upgrades and stuff, and anytime you leave the bastion, you go out on the ship and it like launches the engines from it, and cool stuff like that. So
this question prompts me to want to re-ask a little bit about a little more details about the sort of technology, the two technologies that we've talked about, and I think what we're saying is like we had a very scientifically advanced technology. We got to the point where we were discovering ways to draw on power that was forbidden to us ages ago. And when we broke that seal, all these horrible things happened. And in response, we're still doing that. We haven't stopped using
and we didn't like stop. We're not cowards.
Right, we're not cowards. But we also found this sort of old power that came with the gods, this magic maybe, that has given us the ability to fight them, right? Because using only the power that we had, we were unable to fight them. So in terms of technology, in terms of advancement, I'm still seeing it as like this, like Battlestar Galactica lands in Camelot, kind of.
Yeah, there's going to be some sci-fi stuff and some like
fantasy,
mystical stuff.
Is that because to me, like in my head canon, trying to envision, does that jive with what you guys are thinking as well?
It reminds me of Guy Arts or Nashka.
I'm just going to like toss out some stuff. I love actually those as points of reference, like a lot of the Miyazaki stuff where there's some like weird technology in a sense of like the like soft apocalypse kind of stuff that's hinted at, especially in like Nausicaa. But just to like throw some notions out there, this could be like the isolated city state is like an island or is in a mountainside that borders on the water, and then you have like a man of war style like sailing ship made of wood that you depart on that has robots that jump out of it into the water and like fight things. Like it could be that. It could be like a magic, like there's a magic floating rock that they have built this like facility on that then like launches out and does stuff. It could be like a literal like spaceship style ship that flies around. It could be a thing that moves on the ground. It could be like an enormous like tank thing that rolls out. I don't know. It could be all kinds of crazy shit. So we can blend all of those ideas together to make whatever. So yeah, here's where we get to like answer that question, I guess, in a way, by our choices and our descriptions.
Yeah.
Can someone please remind me, because I don't ever remember, in this context, what is a corvette?
It is a, so if a battle cruiser can like blot out the sun, it's a smaller type ship, like the hammerheads in Star Wars. I don't know if that helps.
So in more like down to earth terms, so like, yeah, if we were talking about like an aircraft carrier and then like a destroyer, and then a corvette is like a small speedy ship that's designed for like,
it's maneuverable
like
and aggressive.
Pirates would have corvettes, right? Like fast, maneuverable, agile ships.
Thank you. Okay, cool.
As opposed to like a big lumbering thing. It's like a zippy, smaller thing.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Yeah. That helps context wise. Cool.
So I'm thinking of this idea of an island surrounded by tumultuous seas with some sort of like mystical barrier that is not always perfectly capable, and all these horrible forces coming at it from literally all sides, right? And like an orbital fence system, like firing lasers and stuff too, that is totally unable to unable to squash the leviathans. But it's like this weird juxtaposition of like magical force field wall that is constantly assaulted, and like and also still the technology that we're trying to like win the war that we never will.
You could even have like a flag with like 7 stars on it. We've got the 7 stars that never move that actually do the orbital bombardment kind of nonsense.
Yeah, like there's some kind of weird watcher satellites over top of this thing.
I mean, this is classic Atlantis / Hyperborea kind of nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Is this
that
some
doesn't
kind
say
of
anything
like
about our flagship, but
yeah.
That's
so do we have like a repurposed military like ship? Is it like it was an aircraft carrier and now it is carrying leviathans around, and it has like a weird mishmash of like the old stuff retrofitted with this like magic like warding stones around it to protect it from leviathans or something like that? Do we want to go that route of like the weird combiney, or is this like a totally separate thing that we're carrying around these magic robots in?
I like the idea that we took our current technology and retrofitted it and like forced it doesn't fit quite right. Like we like forced
this awkward marriage of the two.
Yeah, we made this space because we're like, okay, we take this ship out, it'll just be destroyed. But if we have the magic stones and all these things, right? Like, so it's not that they're done like haphazardly. It's just there was no magic ship for us to use. Those were destroyed or we never had them. So we had to like do with what we had.
Make a facsimile.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I kind of like the idea of this being the last like since the engines engines are basically based on ancient tech.
Yes.
I would love it if like our vessel maybe is like the last Leviathan hunter, but if we're talking about aesthetics, I love the idea of this hybridization that you're pitching. But I wanted to say like this idea that we're separate and held in like a particular way might be interesting if we actually had something like a floating island that was like retrofitted, that like lands in the city and then like lifts up and like heads out, and then like we drop off.
Yeah,
of
it's
like the
it's
battlefield.
not that we put high-tech stuff, or sorry, put old tech stuff on a high-tech ship. So we have an old tech ship that we have upgraded with like modern
put high tech stuff on. Yeah. Right. So
floating fortress.
That sounds cool to me. I love floating island things.
Yes.
Right. So we see this floating island, right? And then we see like these giant like chains like drop down that like hook a, like
anchors.
Like anchor, like all this.
And it's like has like pinnerets with then like satellite dishes on them and stuff.
Right.
Like there's all this weird mashing together of aesthetics.
And like it's got like holes maybe on the top that are not obvious immediately why, but sometime in the first season, like the first time it floats back over the city, you see the like chains go down and then like jets like fire out to like actually push
to
it
like
down.
control its
It
altitude.
stops floating because like the
Nice.
magic is trying to push it up.
Great.
Yes. Yes.
And there's
Nice.
going to be all kinds of great art and stuff that we can pull of floating high-tech islands and stuff. I'm into
Yeah.
it. Okay, great. So floating fortress,
Floating
Cool.
fortress. I
cool.
think.
And
yeah,
we
yeah.
covered a bunch of other stuff in making that choice, which is nice.
Yeah.
So now the big one, which I'm gonna read out because I'm gonna do some talking alongside of it. The engines.
Wait, what is its name and what is its history?
Yes.
I think we know its history. We found
just
it.
talked
We
about it,
retrofitted
yeah.
it. Cool. What is its name? That's important stuff. Strash, earlier you had been talking about using names of like Arthurian type names. I don't know if that's. I feel like finding a naming convention often makes things easier when you're like, oh, what kind of name? If you like already know that we've got like we're using
So-
Roman god names or we're using this stuff. Also
if
like
you-
tweaking those and like messing them up as well.
If you go to the bottom right corner of this sheet, there is a name list for this playbook of like people names to give some sense of like what the out the box vibes are for it. We don't have to stick to this necessarily, but it's there for inspiration. And they're all based on a lot. They're all are kind of like old medievally suggestive names. Like a lot of them are angel or demon names, and a bunch of them are some other random stuff. But
Mhm.
Escaflowne names.
there's a couple Escaflowne names
yeah.
in there. Yeah, some-
There's no
Some
pubs
kind of-
in Seattle, right? So there's no Quinn's or Hazelwood or anything like that there. So you're good.
so there is that as something to draw on. Not that I will be hardline about insisting that we use that list. And then yeah, if we want, I think it's really nice to have like a schema for names. But we can come up with that, especially for like places and things, or like for the old stuff. Like
Yeah.
like Babylonian names or like Arthurian type names. Although I don't want the floating fortress to be called Camelot. I'm just gonna hardline that right now. I will struggle if we just call it Camelot. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree. That would be it's yeah.
Babylon is pretty awesome. But I'm okay with us just picking something like
I could-
Bastion.
Yeah. Well, Bastion is the place.
Yeah, we already know what the city fortress is
Oh.
called, right? Because that would
Right.
be
Right, my bad.
Bastion.
Yeah. I mean, I like it, but I like Babylon.
The wayward hurt. Who knows?
And that the story of building the tower that goes to heaven wasn't that they built a really tall tower, so they built a tower on an island and it floated up.
It's called the Anchor.
The anchor is also good.
I call it the anchor.
I have lots of opinions, but I don't know where to point them.
Throw them at us.
Well, there's always the like in Atlas Reckoning, the way you come up with mech names. There's that game.
Yeah, I like that game.
Go
I like
figure.
that game a lot.
It's a great game. So there's that as like a thematic like mashup. There's a part where we can stick to like pick a virtue. That's like, and it can have a public facing name and a private name. Like there, it can have two different names. That's another thing. And the duality
Right.
that is how it's talked about publicly versus arguably it's our character's home.
Right.
A word that means many things. So I don't know. That none of that is specifics, but
If there's a word that means both home and prison, I would be really drawn to that word. I don't know, chat, if you have ideas, but I would tell you right now that if there was I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a word that means both those things.
call it the conclave.
I like that.
I like that because it's a place name, and this thing is a floating place, right? Or it could be a place name, right? Like this is where the conclave happens. It's like a place where the ancient people would like meet and do important shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. Let's do that. I think
Conclave?
The
Does
conclave.
it feel like an way to be?
I'm okay with it.
I feel like it's strong.
Great. So that's its name. Its history is that it's kind of bridging the Last Leviathan Hunter and a floating fortress is what we discussed, right? That it's like this ancient thing that was used back in the mythological, the time of myths and legends where they challenged the gods with this, or from this floating fortress. And that presumably there was some time where they like fought the Titans, as it were, right? Like some ancient time where humans wrestled with these things and contained them.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, so now we can move on to the engines.
Thanks, Luke. I mean, actual play, a place that's both home and prison, Earth.
Real good.
Good call there. I think we'd get confused if we called it that, but good call.
So the Earth is orbiting the Earth, and
right.
All right. So the engines are semi-sentient combat mechs, each unique from the others. They have identities, memories, and emotions of their own. And we have a bunch of questions to answer here. And then we're each going to add one to the hanger. So I'll take us to the other sheet, and we're going to, everyone makes one up. They're going to describe it, name it, assign it one virtue and one impulse. The impulses and virtues are listed on the other sheet. And then lastly, and very importantly, your character is incompatible with the engine you have made and cannot pilot it. And we're going to talk about why. So there's going to be a whole process we're going to go through, but everyone is going to get to author one of these, including me. I will make one up. So there will always be one extra one until you get them wrecked. And then there will be no extra ones. And then you'll be sad. So the first question is, why can't we build more?
I don't think we can build any.
We'd never built them in the first place.
They came, right. We've discovered them rather than built them.
Like they found these things like buried in the earth somewhere, or...
I think so. I think when these huge, monstrous, like natural, these mountainous perversions of nature, when these huge earthquakes erupted and tsunamis happened, and all these things happened, like they were unveiled.
They were, like exposed by the calamity.
And that's it. That's the ones we found are the only ones we have. That's what feels like what we've been leading to.
Yeah, and so like our current. Maybe in the past they made them or like forged something into them or whatever, but that now we don't have a means of making more of them here and now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Cool.
We might be able to like repair their frames or their like armor, but we cannot fix the core component.
Yeah, there's like a core,
the drive,
the like heart of the thing. Yeah,
I mean, it's if it really is this magic technology, right? Like we don't understand that magic, right? Like we can do the mechanical parts of it, but not the.
And yeah, Andy, since you are the mechanic,
yes,
I feel like your voice carries extra weight in a lot of this discussion.
Well,
how are you feeling?
Well, by and large, one of the things that's if we go back to that duality aspect of these ancient reawakened god being perversions of nature, and we have basically the engines, are they clarified? Are they clear extensions of like elements of nature? Is it that it's been pointed in the same direction so they're in alignment with themselves and there's no way to align them? Is it that those cores are like pieces, like in their purest form of some element? Like what here, these are all things and aspects of the matter. So we don't have the means, we probably don't understand it, right? Over and over again, don't understand it, can't bring that old technology, which is probably available everywhere. If you could kill a Leviathan, you could maybe make
an engine out of some like core of it.
Yeah, the heart.
Or
Leviathan,
yeah. I mean, no one knows that, of course, but maybe they do. It's old lore.
Cool. Okay.
Maybe.
That all seems good.
Yeah.
So our next question is, what do they yearn for?
Do they all yearn for the same thing?
This is like a general yearning, unless we want to have it be like there's like a clear drive with it, where it's like each one yearns for this type of thing, like a category of things. I would also think that's totally legit. So like they each want to be reunited with some other, like with a different, and each one has like a paired engine and they've lost them and they don't know where they are, or something like that. Or like each one yearns to die at the hands of one of the Leviathans.
I have
like
a really
one or something. There's room for that kind of stuff.
I have a really sad idea, which is that if these are
make it sad.
if these are entities that sort of power, if the core, if whatever it is, the core that both has sentience and feelings is what powers the legacies, the engines rather, the thing that they yearn for is to be free of them, like to not be trapped by this machine
in the like hull that surrounds the core.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really sad because it's basically saying like if they got what they wanted, like we lose everything. But that I don't know. If we imagine this, like all the mechanical parts we can make, but there's a special living, sentient, feeling thing. It doesn't,
and that they're trapped in their own bodies.
Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, Andy pitched the fact that the way to make one of these is to rip out the heart from a still living god and shove it into a prison, essentially.
A mechanical prison.
Yeah.
Where you,
I mean, there's also room for these being, for the engines being like a slightly more benign flip side of the Leviathans, where they're like, they're kind of okay with being put to this use, but that they do want to, they want to have their farewell to arms. They want to stop fighting at some point.
They would like to have a retirement plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
401k for giant robots.
Pat just put out all hope is lost and reminded me that we have agreed that humanity has given up hope. Yes. And I think that there could be an interesting dark reflection in the idea that the engines have too. Right? Like the engines have literally been trapped inside
for like eons.
The core of these engines have literally been trapped inside for eons, like way before we ever existed. They've never known freedom. And so they, you know, so there's no reason for them to expect to ever be freed of these machines, but yet that's
but they yearn for it nonetheless.
Of course they do. I mean, if they're aspects of like elemental forces, then of course they're tired of their bonds.
Has bound and conscripted to form to be a machine of war.
Cool. So the humans from the way back past who had the cool magic technology were also jerks. Great.
Yeah, right.
I'll write this in my little notebook here.
Always been jerks.
Diplomatic.
Been humans.
Yeah.
That one.
Okay. Our next question is, what names are they given? And this doesn't have to be like they're given the name specifically, like Bob and Bill and whatever. It's just like, what is the significance of their names? What kinds of names are they given?
Well, Andy, you've mentioned several times the idea of them being elemental entities. So there could be entities named things like Inferno and Hurricane and Earthquake and Avalanche.
Or like the Southern Wind or the Himalayas. Or
the Sirocco, right?
Yeah, stuff like that. Like names for
the Borealis.
Because then it also ties them to their
things.
Yeah.
The trade winds, right? Like
So while we are obviously not doing Arturian myth, I still think of them as these like giant stone knights, almost like.
And these could be names from the like ancient civilization that they, you know, that's like their name, and we read it and we're like, oh yeah, this one is called like Imhotep or whatever. You know, like they could have names of ancient kings or names of ancient warriors or whatever.
I was gonna say their combat role, like.
So they have like designations rather than
like archer, you know, like warder, sword, like that kind of like usually identified by like what position they're taken or
right. So they are also institutionalized.
Yes.
Right. Just in the way that you guys are pilots, they are. Yeah.
For a brief moment, I was going to just assign them numbers, but I thought that might be a little too creepy.
No, and like that's legit too, right? And that they probably have a different name. Like, they have an identity, but that they are that people who have identities often get names assigned to them. I mean, we have all had names assigned to us by our parents for the most part, and that's a struggle. So yeah, like that's real. How sad do you want this to be, guys? I'm not invested in it being any less sad or more sad, so just you let me know.
I'm okay with sads. How you guys feeling?
Yeah. I had it talking about this whole thing of like you saying them being like these stone knights gave me a little more Bladesy idea, which I don't think is entirely compatible with what we've been talking about so far of them being like fueled by the hearts of a Leviathan. But of like, again, this is probably more Bladesy, but I just want to throw it out there, but that like when the ancient warriors or the ancient prophets or the ancient healers or the ancient notable wonderful people died, they were entombed in these things, and like it's their ghost or their spirit, or it's like that like has to keep fighting, has to keep doing it, has to keep fueling these things. And so
there is an option under the impulses that you can assign to them. They can be haunted, and that can mean literally if you want. So it's definitely, at the very least, Sean, it's an option for like the one you make to have ghosts.
Oh, cool. Oh, you know, I think I like
at the very least, and I like the idea of them all having ghosts in them as well. But like, yes, totally, there is support for that.
Yeah. So
I'm also okay if we name them after like tarot card roles or something. So like you pilot the Emperor or the
Hierophant, or
yeah,
the Chariot.
Death. And one could be the Tower, which is a fucking legit name.
I was gonna say
Yeah. Okay.
Give me death.
I'm in.
We could do the Four Horsemen. You know,
and so while we
like
will
that idea of disease and stuff like that,
we're gonna start with 4, but we can find more during play.
Yeah.
As well.
Right.
So,
and presumably there's others.
And there are more than just these 4. These are like the 4 that your crew has, because we have talked vaguely, and I don't know if we have complete buy-in from everyone, but the idea that there are like a couple teams of like Leviathan hunting crews, and that maybe y'all are like the foremost or the least most, whichever you want to be.
Sure.
Within that, but that like
there
are some rival little crews out there, which we won't focus on until they come up. But yeah.
Okay, the more I'm thinking about this, the more I'm getting excited about the idea of tarot named
Tarot,
robots,
yeah.
Some of which we have, some of which have been destroyed, some of which we never found.
Right, and I'm sure there's like weird, like lost arcana that no longer exist in our current understanding of it, but that there's like, these things.
Yeah,
for them.
I'm playing that mini game forever.
Great.
Is that a buy-in, Andy? Are you excited about this? Is there stuff?
Yes.
I'm excited as well.
All right.
Cool.
I already know I want to play the Fool.
And then
or make the Fool.
The last question is, how does our transcendence affect them? So the player characters can transcend, they can like activate their magical girl powers. This also does something to the engines while you're piloting them. Because you pilot them normally, you're like marching them around doing stuff, and then you can like overdrive them when you transcend. What is that like?
I was going to say, we are infected with Leviathan sickness. I think we just like inject them with some sort of elemental stand kind of like thing. So
they
like,
start to resemble Leviathans.
Well, it's not just that. It's like if you're playing the Magician, but you're infected with fire, it'll be different than if you're playing Magician, but you're infected by like some monstrosity of water or air or
whatever else.
We give them that elemental ability or that elemental nature that they don't.
So we actually get like a weird kind of synchronicity between pilot and engine that doesn't exist unless the pilot is transcending.
How does that resonate with you, Andy?
So I think what I hear is that we bring forward the characters having their own. So I'm confused between elemental presence, which to my understanding is the engines, and then the characters transcended bringing what exactly? Because I hear that there's a symbiotic.
So my summation of this is my like what I'm hearing, and y'all can correct me, is that so every pilot has been affected by the Leviathans and has in some way been changed by them and has this like Leviathan sickness, which they are able to like weaponize as part of their transcendence. And that then when you are piloting an engine, that Leviathan-ness from you, whatever characterizes that. So say you were out front of like some crazy like water spout storm Leviathan, and that's affected you. You'll have inherited some of its qualities, and then you imbue those into the engine you're piloting. Is that what y'all are describing?
Right. So then what that does in my mind is that restricts the sort of basic nature of the engines to be like these stone warriors or these mechanical things or whatnot, and then when imbued get these elemental qualities where they burst into flames or they suddenly can dive through water,
or an intertwining of your character and maybe that of the engine's core that like comes alive and
Mhm.
awakens and
Yeah.
manifests.
Is that manifestation often cloaked in like flesh, or the like rather like is a transformation from like stone and machine?
Oh God, yeah. Does it become
it's
like
like
a living thing briefly?
I hope so. That's what I
Oh God,
need it
that's
to
messed
be.
up. I'm into that.
Oh my
I'm
god.
in.
Yeah.
That's
Great.
fucking
So
awesome.
they are these machines that literally come alive in
They
like
in
a
turn,
biological sense.
yeah, like they in fact embody themselves when we transcend with them.
Right.
Yeah.
That may be the freest they can be of these chains. Is those moments where we transcend with them, right?
It's
That might
probably
be
part
like
of
the
why they
most,
tolerate being piloted by
right. The most they can experience being free of this shell is when they embody it and it becomes their body rather than their cage. And it only happens when we transcend inside them. And it's brief and it's
perfect, beautiful.
Bittersweet.
Yes, because it goes away.
yeah.
And like they're addicted to you in the same way that you're addicted to piloting
Yes.
them.
Yes, right. So
That's
that I
really
like a lot because we know what they want is inherently something we can't give them, but we can give them a little taste of it, even though that's a
yeah, like
torture in its own right. Like
there's the tension that it would like consume you like you were a fuel source for it. It could just like
Yeah.
burn you out entirely.
Hey, from what we've done when it comes to tapping into powers that don't belong to us, who could blame them?
It's a really interesting reversal of that dynamic, right? That like they use you as a power source as well. So that all being said, I'm going to take us to the other page. We're going to add one engine to the hangar. So there's a section on the sheet where we can add engines. We're going to describe it, name it, assign it one virtue and one impulse. Keeping in mind that your character is incompatible with the engine that you make. So you won't be able to pilot the one that you make up. So don't get attached to it in that way because it's not allowed.
We are all good with that.
Okay, so here we are on the crew sheet now. And the hangar is just to the left of the big gray column. You can also see to the left of the hangar, there's the flagship area where we can upgrade it and get it different abilities. The engine virtues that you can choose from are elegant, fierce, clever, powerful, wise, brave, serene, and bright. And the engine impulses are cursed, imperious, sentimental, lost, tormented, lonely, ancient, principled, haunted, wounded, unfinished, morbid, calculating, weary, feral, hungry. These matter because when your actions align with one of your engine's virtues, it provides a helping die. So if you're aligning with its like heroic idiom, whatever that is, you get extra dice. When your actions align with one of its impulses, or you accept a dark bargain based on its impulses, that action does not deplete your transcendence and you mark 1 XP. So essentially, if it's acting on its impulses, it doesn't burn up as much of your power to do things because its will is also supporting you in doing that stuff.
That's what it wants.
Yeah, exactly. They all start with 1 and 1. During play, you can add an impulse to an engine by way of a dark bargain. So they all have a secret second impulse that we don't know about yet, but that we will discover later. So they are all pregnant with secrets. Yeah.
All right,
They're
now
all
for
based
the
on tarot cards.
Shall we pick some tarot cards?
Let's pick tarot cards so we don't overlap while we're plotting and scheming.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was gonna say limiting the options because there's a bunch, and this is gonna be where the like decision paralysis is gonna be.
Yeah, I'm just gonna look only at major arcana.
Great.
I think I want to do the chariot. And I'm just gonna double check what that one's all about, but chariot means victory. That's good.
It's gonna be fine.
And it's reversed as lack of control and direction, aggression. See, they're perfect. They're actually perfect. They have virtues and impulses cooked in. This is great. Oh, this is so good. Thank you for that perfect suggestion. Okay, cool.
Josh, good job.
Yes.
A lot of these like series or ideas in general work better when you have like these like bold statements, but they're not tied to individuals. So like I wasn't really feeling piloting like the Zeus or like
right
Imhotep. Like I thought that this might work well.
It's like one step more abstract.
Yeah.
But it still has identity in it. Yeah, it's like really useful to have something with that to it. So I'm just gonna add the chariot in the top spot on the hanger because obviously it's It's the like flagship of the engine fleet is the chariot.
Are you doing, let's see, I'm trying to figure out so I can display it. Are you putting that on the sheet itself, or are you
Yeah, so I'm making little text fields here in the hangar on the crew sheet. I pulled players over to it, but if you're in the game as a
No, I'm in, but I see it.
Okay.
Okay.
And so yeah, I'm in the little top spot. So engines are gonna, if there's a spot for you to put its name, its virtue, its impulses, and then it's got 3 strength pips. So there will be things in the fiction that deplete its strength. When its strength goes to 0, you can't pilot it. And then the little 4 dial clock is its recovery clock. So you can fix up engines just like you would a person. They have a recovery clock. So we track that there.
So Andy and Sean, what are you guys thinking? Okay.
I am thinking
We're also in Roll20, so you could always like roll a d21 and
no.
Yeah.
Randomness will never do. It must be
on purpose.
It must be intentional. I'm yeah, I was originally like, okay, I totally know. And then now I'm looking at others.
I have like 4 or 5 ideas, so if you folks pick some of them, then that narrows down my choices.
Right.
So I'm trying to cheat by asking you these questions.
Well, so thematically, Andrew, you went for the chariot. And can you say again what you said? So we've got a virtue of powerful.
Yeah, I'm going to choose powerful for it. So the virtues and impulses are all directly above the hangar section.
Yeah.
They're just listed. Yeah. And so I'm going to go with powerful. It seems like I'm just doing the most straightforward thing. So yeah, it's just like a big, like, it's also the one that is like most celebrated by the people of the Bastion.
Sure,
I'm
absolutely.
viewing this as being like the most in line with the authorities' view of like what is good.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be this like massive, destructive, powerful thing. And for its impulse, it's going to have something just really sad. But I got to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could just be hungry. That would be good.
So, that's pretty. I mean, who isn't?
But no, I think it is. Gosh, I think it's tormented. And we can discover exactly what that all means in play, but yeah. The chariot, powerful and tormented. It is the like flagship of the engine fleet. It is the largest and has like the greatest like output in like wattage or whatever. And I think it is, so we've described them. Do we like this idea of them being like kind of big like stone humanoid things?
Does it have to be humanoid? Can it be a lion?
Yeah, this is what I'm asking, right? Does it have to be humanoid? I like the idea of it being made of stone. I think that's really cool. And that maybe there's some weird like mineral that exists in all this stuff that is like defies scientific understanding that they're all made out of, and that's part of why they can like turn to flesh.
No, that's magic.
Well, but like this is what I mean, right? Like there's like a magical rock that they're made out of, and people try to like analyze it with science, and it's just a black box. They can't understand it.
I gotcha. Yes, that.
So yeah, it's yeah, I think it's like some kind of weird horse thing. Some kind of weird horse-like thing. It's got like an equine quality to it. It has like 4 legs, and then yeah, like also arms. So I guess it's like centaur-ish, but has like a horse's head as well. And horns. And it's just like this weird, like horrifying, like it just runs at you and smashes things. Maybe it has like a goat's head, actually. That's more fun. Yeah, it has like a big like ram's head. So it's kind of has like a chimera-like quality to it, I guess. Like there's like it's a weird mash of animals. And it doesn't have hooves. It has like clawed feet on the front and then hooves on the back.
Nice.
And yeah, it's this massive like stone horrifying horse ram thing.
Nice. All right, Sean, Strash, what are y'all thinking about? Because I'm like really struggling, and there's too many options and on too many vectors.
Right. So I don't know tarot card meanings very well. I mean, there's just a few that I've heard. So I'm mostly going to like, that sounds neat. And so I look to others who might know their traditional aspects to give guidance. My limited understanding of the Hanged Man is it's a symbol of sacrifice and also of like change and rebirth, of things dying and things coming from it, which feels like it fits with our sacrifice. I like the idea of a ship that is like the first one out, the scout, you know, that kind of goes out, and also the idea of a ship that is like a one that has been like broken and rebuilt over and over and over and over again. Like it's so my envisionment for its virtue is that it's brave, that it like will sustain whatever horrible things happen in order to serve it. And I was thinking, and I don't know, but because it's on this like state of evolution or state of change, that its impulse would be unfinished. But I don't, again, I'm kind of just like clicking on Wikipedia and going, oh, that looks cool. That's what it's about, reading it right now. So I
stuff that sticks out to me is the other interpretation section on the wiki for this card, where it says, in other interpretations, the hangman is a depiction of the Norse god Odin, who suspended himself from a tree in order to gain knowledge, or the Christian interpretation that portrays Judas and includes the bag of silver in his hands, so that there's this weird notion of like gaining access to things forbidden, or of doing like betraying people, doing bad things, that because there's the corporal punishment angle of being hanged, even though the card is usually portrayed as being there by choice.
You could also integrate some of that together with a more literal interpretation, which is oftentimes the very anime thing to do. And you could say that like your broken pieces are held together because one of the things that makes this engine unique is the fact that it's got like chains running through its system. So like a lot of its parts, like if it breaks off, it pulls it back together, and it can also use this to like anchor itself. So it's literally hanging from things. Get some spider traits maybe.
Yeah, and the fact that those chains are holding it together show that it's been broken and sort of rebuilt many times. So based on the notions that you talked about, Andrew, I can also very much see like wise as being, you know, something you associate with a sort of like Odin.
Yeah, because it has like a contemplative quality.
Yeah, which I think would also fit, and certainly the either wounded. Actually, that's it. I think that's it. I think it's wise and wounded. Now that I think about it, it's like it's perpetually. But that's its impulses. So I'm not. How do you think, Andrew? How do you think impulses like manifest in game? Like, what would it mean to say
it's wounded? Like, what is that about? Yeah. So, I can definitely see dark bargains based on that impulse coming in, right? Of like, yeah, you can do that thing, but like your engine's like strength goes down by 1, you get an extra die, but it like literally tears itself apart to accomplish things.
Yeah.
Because its corporeal state is perilous, right? Because it's wounded, it's like it can do stuff, but it's always pushing itself a little farther. Acting on its impulse could be to like, you know, dodge away from danger in order to preserve itself because it is wounded or feels fragile, stuff like that. So there are ways to play into it in that sense, and that it'll always get a second one later when we decide that it's appropriate for it to manifest. So the one can be a setup to another.
So so I think that the whereas the chariot is seen by society as like the pinnacle of I mean, we're talking about things that we value, and I need to pull up whether or not we we said strength and sacrifice. Like I think
strength and sacrifice were the values of
I
this
think
society.
that the hanged man is seen as like, despite being broken and tied back together with chains, is constantly sacrificing itself and constantly going out, and it never returns from battle without the signs of that. Like,
so there's a bit of that Christian vibe of being Jesus on the cross, right? Like that it's martyring itself.
It's got a very like martyred notion. So would someone who was in Roll20 mind dropping that in there in the hangar?
I got you covered.
Cool.
Can you repeat what the two things are there real quick?
They are wise and wounded.
Got it. Actually, if you don't mind, Andrew, I'm just going to make the fonts red so that they stand out a little bit better.
Oh yeah. Like
cool?
when you're using a pen on the sheet, it totally goes over the little gray writing that's underneath. But in this format, yeah, I think a color would work better to stand out. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, looks good.
Cool. So we have this kind of like, very Odin-y, like
Odin-y, Christian-y,
wise self-sacrificing figure,
saviory, but also like expected to just keep enduring this punishment. Like only respected, only appreciated for the punishment it endured.
Yeah, because it has endured horrible things, right? That's where its like power comes from and stuff. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, and if this fits in, I'm going to say that it was the ship. It was the before the back in the past. It was the engine that I piloted, and like because of our like past, it will
right. You can no longer do it.
Yeah, it's like it's what I used to be in, and it like
you've like betrayed it somehow, or that it's changed.
Yeah,
it has like suffered damage and stuff since then, and is now this different thing that is
another former lover.
I think we can explore. Yeah, that's sort of what I was feeling like. I sort of was feeling like because like it was a personal connection that was broken, some sort of betrayal.
Yeah. So y'all, and that's something we can discover in play, which I think is really great to have this like unresolved tension between you and that. But we know now why you can't pilot it, which is something that y'all will have to discuss that I don't have to for mine because I don't have a pilot. I just make a cool thing. Someone used to pilot the chariot and they're dead now, and now it's been assigned to your unit. That's where it comes in.
Yeah.
Andy, to answer your question, there's a whole bunch that I could easily feel really inspired to make.
Mm-hmm.
Like the magician, the emperor, the moon, the devil.
Great. Well, then here, I just fell in love with the moon.
Okay, beautiful.
And I need some help sort of contextualizing that, because the first thing that I think about immediately is the saying about the hour between dog and wolf.
Oh, yeah.
And so that like liminal space of you don't know if what is coming is friend or foe, and that sort of uncertainty of dusk. And so I don't know much about the card in its context at large.
So the card has like two towers and also a dog and a wolf. And a moon frowning down and being uncertain about things that are going on. So those are some like maybe physical images that you can use to help inspire you. But I think I'm good at cheat because I have
the internet.
Yes, right. So one of the things that it talks about is like how it. Well, all right. The card represents the life of the imagination apart from the spirit. The dog and the wolf are fears of the natural mind in the presence of that place of exit when there is only reflected light to guide it. It illuminates our animal nature. So it's, I don't know, you can go with all sorts of like werewolf motifs here.
And there's also like a dreamlike quality around it. And there are ways in which it reflects the inner worlds of people.
Yeah.
When the moon comes up.
Both fierce and serene seem to feel very appropriate in terms of virtues. Like I could see that, those both.
Oh, interesting. So if we're talking about like this internal world and sort of like this dreamlike or this different pardon from the body in some regards sort of state, I'm real interested in both serene and bright in the moment.
Yeah.
And then impulses.
What do you
Why?
think?
Go ahead.
If there is this idea of this mirrored thing of the dog and the wolf, if you did Serene, which is like this beautiful version of it, what if the impulse was hungry, like
Mhm.
Like the
there's
wolf?
like-
If it was hungry like the wolf?
Yeah,
Sean, is
I
that what
didn't
you're
say
saying?
it. I didn't say it. I was trying to be a little more subtle. I guess.
I would prefer feral, like Serene and feral.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
I think
Yeah.
feels because
that's a really nice pairing.
It is a really nice pairing. They're very juxtaposed from each other.
I'm doing that.
Awesome. It is done.
So
Why? Thank you.
why can your character not pilot the moon?
The moon. Why can't we? Oh gosh, why can't?
You, the civilian mechanic.
Right. If the moon, I don't know what the moon looks like yet. Let's see. Is this because the moon is too deeply in the world of like so the moon and my mechanic, they're worlds of symbols. Like they're too like they don't ever move. They're too busy engaging in concepts together. Like they speak the same language. Like they're too similar / they're too different all at the same time. Like it's like hanging out with your BFF all the time. Like
It's
You're just
the dog and the wolf,
yeah.
right? Like that image
Mm-hmm.
can be a symbol of this interaction. Yeah, that you're both like close to each other, but there's some fundamental gap where it doesn't quite.
And who's the dog and who's the wolf on each day?
Yep.
Who's to say?
What do you think? What are you envisioning for the physical imagery of it?
Oh my gosh. We were talking about something that's stone. I think I'm really inclined to be very literal in it being like some sort of canid shape, and we keep talking about some sort of stone and material, and in this case, instead of being very dark of cast, the stone is in fact sort of like has lots of like mica chips and is very pale and washed out.
Nice.
It could also be that like most of them are stone, but this one has almost a metallic quality to it, and we can't tell why because when we touch it, it feels like stone. But
There's
Right.
a silveriness. There's a
Something. Yeah, somewhere in that neck of the woods.
Cool. Strash.
oh man, now give me the tough one. There's still too many good tarots left.
We'll back you up. We'll back you up.
The blessing and curse of using something like the tarot.
yeah.
This is wonderful. I'm very excited about it.
I think I'm just gonna go with my gut, and I think we're gonna just do the magician.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
What's the magician like?
What's the magician like? I have a really cool mental image, so let me see if I can find. I think that the magician is. Let me read this. Let me see if I can be inspired by an impulse.
Yeah.
Is he?
Yes, I totally got it. The magician is clever and cursed.
That seems appropriate.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really good.
As a matter of fact, it drains its pilots at a much more accelerated rate, and so whoever pilots the magician is like on a timer. It's probably I mean, it's position 1, so it's one of the oldest, maybe even the most powerful engines we have, but it devours pilots.
Yeah, because it just like doesn't have like a throttle. It's just like immediately 100%.
Yeah.
As soon as you're in it, it just, like, takes everything you have.
Oh,
and
I love that idea that there's like some physical operations and the mechanics of it, and like one of them is like dial up the power, and the magician is just like a breaker. It's just like on,
yeah.
right? Like there's no dial at all.
That's so great.
And
And that fits
just
so nicely. Yeah.
have this image of a humanoid with like 6 sets of arms that like unfold and like make gestures, and like whenever you like fuse with it, like your fusion like manifests as like wings or like hair of whatever element you're fusing into it as part of it. And yeah, but like whenever it's standing still, it generates this like cloak. So all you see is its arms and its like head piece.
Right, yeah, it like manifests like this eerily floating cloth draping on it once it's
Nice.
actually
Nice.
More like a translucent field that like cloaks and warbles around it in a fashion that
Oh, I see.
human
Okay.
seeing at a distance would be like, oh, it made a cloak, but it's not actually like physical substance. It's actually like something that reflects its core, like that's part of its like leviathan nature or whatever.
Yeah, there's like
Yeah.
an energy field that distorts light and it kind of looks like it's wearing robes or
Yeah.
something. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I feel like each of them has a way in which, like, yes, it's a stone thing, but but the moon is sort of silvery, and the hangman is wrapped in chains, and the magician has this sort of like force fields or sort of weird light manifestation around it. And it seems to me like the chariot's big thing is just like it's just like big and massive, and like
I think parts of it look like bone too. Like it seems
cool.
like it's like
Yes.
unbleached desert bones. It's got that like cast to it.
Nice.
So good. Hey, Strash, why
Yes.
don't y'all get along?
Oh, actually, we used to get along. I used to be the pilot of the magician, but it took so much from me at the end in the season finale for season 1, which everybody's seen, of course.
Yeah,
it was
There was
great.
an
It was
epic
amazing.
moment,
I remember this.
and it broke me. And as a matter of fact, I wasn't a pilot for a little while. Like I probably started. Like in the trailers for season 2, I was like in a hospital or something. And so now when I try to enter it, it refuses to activate for some reason. And we don't know if that's because it cares for me and it doesn't want to kill me, or because it doesn't think that I have enough juice to make it
It's
go.
just like, oh, you don't have the sauce anymore, kid. You can't pilot me.
Yep.
Yeah. Was your response to it like I'm gonna get back up in the saddle, or was your response one of fear and reluctance and you finally broke down to try it? Like, did you?
We play to find out.
Right. So like there's something happened. We don't know what. And like y'all don't
We know it didn't work, but I'm
Yeah,
curious as
but we
to,
don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I actually I think that there's a moment. Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll have to find out in play, just because I want to play it by gut. But I think I definitely like cried a lot when I found out that it wouldn't activate for me anymore. I'm probably not going to be as big a fan of whatever it is I'm piloting now.
Yeah. I can see us all having weird, definitely strange feels about the engine that we can't pilot.
Well, yeah,
because
it's like the
personal.
Right. It's like, why don't you want to be my friend? I thought you liked me.
mm-hmm.
I'm like one of the 5 humans that can do this. You're one of the 5 machines that exist.
Strash, I missed the virtue that you chose for the magician.
Oh, it's clever.
Clever, right? Yes. Okay, cool. So it's clever and cursed.
Yeah.
Cool. So those are all filled in. I'm going to take us back to the other sheet because we got a few more choices to make, and we can do character stuff hopefully if we have time. So next up is our transgressions. So how do we transgress against that which is sacred? And humanity gave it up, so why then is it alive in us? So this is where we provide counterpoints to the previous bit of what is held to be sacred and what was humanity forced to give up.
Right.
Our options being strength and sacrifice are held to be sacred, and humanity has given up growth and hope.
I think growth I could see us doing in several ways. One of them is in a physical sense, which is that like we like a lot of the restriction of growth is like there's only so much space, and as in a very physical sense, like we pilot these giant things and we literally just like take up a bunch of space. We have a flagship. When it parks, it takes up all the space. Like it's seen as like we're
the city, and
we consume like a vast amount of resources. But on a more personal on a more personal level. I think also we had this idea like very regimented society, and everybody's told to just like do this one thing and never really hope for anything better. And we have the opportunity, we've already seen it, that we can pilot different ones, that we like leave other places, and that we kind of need to grow and learn. Like we need to adapt. It's like we keep learning new things about the engines, and it's like it's a requirement that we expose ourselves to knowledge and to feelings that otherwise would be shunned, because that's the only way that we can. I mean, we see parts of the world no one else sees because we go out and do all these things. So I think we have this sort of personal growth as well as we take up this space, and both of those are things we need to do in order to pilot the engines. How does that sit with you guys?
I think that's fine. I was gonna say, I really kind of one of the things that we talked about transgressing against is strength and sacrifice, and I think that the way that we transgress against, I'm just pitching. One of the ways that I feel like we transgress against strength is maybe because a lot of this isn't about physical strength. A lot of it is about connection, particularly interpersonal connection. And it's not the kind of thing that you can be in competition in. Like you can't like go to track and field and compete at who feels more or like who connects better.
There's no like arm wrestling equivalent for
You
this.
you can't therapy harder than somebody else.
And as a matter of fact, the very thing that society prizes makes many of them incapable of being pilots. I think that it's perhaps something that we exhibit particularly towards each other. And again, we pitched this idea before that like we fight against sacrifice. Like the engines are few and precious. We do not abandon each other. We try to support each other, even though like,
despite being in a position where that's incredibly difficult.
Yes.
To pull that kind of stuff off.
And it might even be something that we learn from the engines themselves, right? Like they want or insist on certain things.
There's lots of images and stuff that we've seen of like people being carried by giant things, like the eagles carrying the hobbits or something like that, where it's like the thing kind of cradles you or holds you, where like, you know, there's the giant machine and it's holding the little boy in his hand very carefully. Like I can imagine part of one of the things that we need to do is like absolve any sorts of like, I'm riding this thing and I'm bending it to my will, and more that like it carries us in its gentle hands, right? Or in its gentle frame. Like we
takes you into its literal heart.
Yeah, right.
That's where the cockpit is. It's heart.
Yeah, it's like right on top of or inside of its like core. Heart.
Yeah. And it's almost embryonic in that sense. Like we get pushed inside the gooey bits that are inside the stone. I don't know how that.
In so much as there are gooey bits in stone.
Well,
Turns
the
out-
heart of the Leviathan maybe is gooey bits, right? Like, because we know the stone can be replaced and repaired. I think it's the core that.
Yeah, is ineffable.
Yeah. I don't know how people feel about being in the womb of the creature, the heart of the creature, or anything like that.
I like heart.
I like heart.
Yeah.
Cool. So this collection of personal essays about what it means to be a pilot all kind of resonate with people. It just had that feel to it. 'Cause it was like, I personally feel, and then like.
This is my treatise on what it's like to be a pilot.
Okay, cool. So I think that answers both of those questions sufficiently for my purposes anyways.
Well, I don't think Andy really, I mean, Josh and I both had ideas that we said. Do you want to throw out other ideas or tweak those, or, you know, what?
No, nothing that was put forward was in violation of like my imagined space. So I feel really great about everything that the two of you put forward, and I'm really excited about it.
Wonderful.
Great.
Thanks for checking.
So then we have our last hope. What hope do we have against the darkness? Who believes we have a chance and who doesn't?
Oh, I'm in 100%. Oh yeah. Because I mean, let's be clear here. If humanity's going to survive, they need the best pilot. And in case anyone has any questions, that's me. We're doing this.
Nice.
Yes.
Right, like clearly, if y'all are fighting, it's very likely that you believe you stand a chance.
Yeah, I mean, Andy, what do you think?
I think that sometimes you don't really feel that hopeful, but you do it anyway. And some other days you do feel real good about it, but maybe not when you look at the world around you, but when you look at your team.
Yeah, like that your comrades are what you fight for, not the people who are kind of shitty and over there. You
Right.
know, be treated like humans by those people.
Yeah.
Do they believe in the mission, the populace? It sounds like they kind of do because they're told a bunch of propaganda.
Yeah, they utterly believe, right?
Well, I mean, they've given up on hope, right?
Yeah, I was going to say.
They've given up on believing that we can make things any better. I think that.
So they have like a different idea of what the mission is.
Yeah, exactly. I think the mission may be for them that we are gladiators that are fun to watch, and so that they celebrate us in that sense. But we're not actually going to go fix anything.
Has it been hit? Has our existence been hit with the bread and circus framing?
Yeah, like is this shit televised?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
There's stats, like there's gambling, there's fantasy leagues.
Yeah.
I'm into it.
I'm into
it.
That's horrifying. That's great.
I'm okay with this.
People really dig our suffering and our trials, and they're more excited about the match and the bet and if their favorite engine is going to outperform the other than actually any sense of like winning.
It distracts them from understanding that what we're doing is battling monsters just outside our warded city, and we are not looking for new cities or places to go or how to solve the world.
Yeah, exactly. Because Strush is hitting on the really important part, right? Is that like
hope.
The objective here isn't to go out and like take back ground. It's just to like hold this line forever.
Yeah, and what you said, that it's their distraction is exactly what I was thinking, Josh. That's it's how they. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So I feel like who believes we have a chance is no one, and who doesn't is everyone. Like of society, not like that.
See, I'm gonna just bring us over to the crew sheet here and look at the missions that are available to you. And there's the tier 3 mission of stage a desperate counterattack, which like I know exactly how everyone's gonna feel about you trying to do this. They're just be like, why would you ever do that? It's incredibly risky. You're just throwing away assets to do this thing that we know is not possible. And you're like, no, we're going to go win. We're going to go fight the thing.
Yeah. This makes for bad TV.
Right.
Yeah, we can't get cameras.
They don't want the show to end, right?
Great. No, yeah, this is perfect. This is excellent.
Yeah.
Do we want to do a little bit of character playbook stuff, or are we approaching our time?
We should probably take a break, but I'm down for more. We can. How are you guys feeling?
Yeah.
That's great.
I think. All right. Let's be back in 5, and then we'll dig in a little bit.
Yeah.